I was embarrassed to call my people back from Mysore to come get me. I was like, I can't call them back to come get me. And I was just determined to go ahead and get another ticket. And then I missed the flight.
Yeah.
And I missed the first flight, and then the second flight was full. So I was stuck there. So I was like thinking, okay, well, I'll just backpack it a little bit for 3 days, 4 days.
Yeah.
I can do this. I'm American, right? And then around 9:00 that night, this one of the Indian guys was on his phone, and when the city shuts down, the electricity sometimes will shut down.
Yeah.
It just shuts down.
Yeah.
You can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So when it turned back on, he let me use his phone because my phone was acting up. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But what I kept holding on to was my breath. The whole time I was there, I didn't get upset. I did cry in the beginning. I was having anxiety. I was like, oh, I'm in the middle of India.
Yeah.
And you idiot, you missed your flight. And how I missed my flight was that we don't have flights that are 3:30 in the morning. So I didn't think that was real. When I saw that it said 3 a.m., that I needed to be there at 1:30 a.m., I just knew that was 1:30 p.m. So when I got there, they told me other people do that too. I had another guy from UK. He did the same thing.
Yeah.
So I felt better.
Yeah.
So that was my experience. But anyway, I just kind of let that go, and I just started breathing, and I drank water the whole time, and I actually sat my water container down, and one of the gentlemen had ordered a water and saw my container and picked my water and asked me what my name was. And I said, YogiLatin. And then he said, thank you. And he did the
jiggle head.
The jiggle head. Yeah. And then he just took it and turned my water bottle up and drank out of it and said, thank you. And in my head, I remember because when we were in yoga training, everybody drank out of the same water bottles. If it was like 2 or 3, if you had water is a blessing. So you do not share water. You have to share water. It's not a thing.
Not an option.
Yeah. It's like, so, I had to get over that whole germophobic thing.
That's good. Yeah.
And then I just thought maybe that's a blessing. So so I ended up being at the airport through the night. And then finally the guy said, why don't you call your people from Mysore? You can't stay here throughout the night. And I was like, I think you're right. So he talks in their language or whatever and tells them that I'm there. They're on their way immediately. They're on their way. So it took about 2.5 hours. I go to sleep around this little unit where you can charge your cell phones. And all these women, these Indian women and their children were feeding their kids and stuff and had blankets and stuff, and they were all asleep right there. So I slept with them.
Okay.
And we all covered up, and they just let me sleep with them.
Oh.
So I thought it was just a sweet gesture, just to take me in. And then I did see a couple people that I knew because when I was in Mysore at the palace, they had a big event.
Yeah.
So some of those people remembered me and said, weren't you at the Mysore palace? So I thought that was kind of cool.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
So I think I kind of like this.
Yeah.
And so then I get picked up and I go back to Mysore, back to my apartment. They hadn't moved anybody in it. And I'm there for an additional 7 days.
Oh, right.
So I ended up doing 40 days in India. And in those 7 days, I appreciated every minute.
Yeah.
Every yoga class. Well, for 2 days, I was sitting inside the room looking for the best flight. So they didn't bother me. They said, no, she's in manic mode. Don't mess with her. She's trying to find a flight. So for 2 days, they didn't bother me. They just came and brought me food. And then finally, when I got a good flight, the 3rd day and 4th day, I did yoga. I did it even twice a day. I went out and walked instead of getting picked up to go places.
Yeah.
I started walking around, and I was like, you know what? Let me get to really know this place. And so for those 4 or 5 days, it gave me an appreciation of being organized, appreciating time.
Yeah.
I can take this away from you anytime. You asked for this. It was like universe said, you asked for this.
Mm-hmm.
And so, do your diligence. That's what I felt. And so I was feeling very appreciative when I came back and flew the opposite way.
Yeah.
So I went the opposite way. The ticket got me, and I ended up being in Malaysia and then Hong Kong. So I was going to go to Hong Kong and stay for the day, but something was going on with the weather.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go see the Big Buddha, but that didn't work out.
Yeah.
So next time I go, so I'll be going again. But then I ended up in Beijing, and that was an interesting experience. But just to be able to see the little bit of culture gave me a taste of this is what I like.
Yeah.
And then I ended up in Vegas, where I always come back, and my flight didn't get me to Indianapolis. Something happened where it was canceled. And I ended up having a whole weekend, but Spirit gave me a whole weekend with vouchers and everything in Vegas. Now, remember, I have family in Vegas, so I stayed up in the hotel on the Strip the whole weekend. I visited them once.
Oh,
And they were like, you're here? And I'm like, yeah, I'm here for the weekend. And it was also a blessing. And it was also during the time that the son that I told you that passed away, it was on his birthday.
Oh, okay.
So I took that everything was in alignment just to get me to that day. To tell me, because my whole mission when I first started yoga after he passed away was I was doing yoga in the name of him. And then I changed that mission. And so it was kind of this universe and God and him saying, you did well. You did well. Because I just felt so blessed. I was like, wow. And then people were encouraging me on Facebook because they were like, you're like been everywhere. Are you back home? And then I just had this, I felt like I was motivating because people were saying, you're motivating me to just get up and do something different. You're motivating me to drink water. Like right now I'm doing a 14-day water challenge.
Okay.
And the water challenge is basically a reminder that basically we take advantage that we have water. And being over in India, it's not just readily available. In Mysore it was, but I mean, still the way they have their water functioning, it's still not readily available compared to ours. So the water had really transformed me, changed my body, cleansed everything out. I had no preservatives in my body, so I was lean. And when I came to the United States, I was afraid to eat. I didn't know what to eat. I didn't know what to eat because I knew as soon as I intake sugar and salt of something, I'm going to start swelling and everything will start, the pain or anything I had in my body would come. I had no pain. I felt very blessed when I flew over the Pacific Ocean. I feel like God gave me a purple sky and a purple moon and reflection and all that. That whole transition was this transcendental type of something that came across me. And I was the only one up that saw this. It was like one side of the plane. People probably have seen it, but I never flown over Pacific. But anyway, one side of the plane was purple. The other side was blue. And it was just beautiful. It was this beautiful thing. I recorded everything. I had everything recorded.
Yeah, that's good.
So in my mind, I was like, okay, wow. I was like, man, this Pacific Ocean is beautiful. One day I'll get to see it. And so I did get to see it this summer. I got to go to the West Coast and be all up through Santa Barbara and San Diego and Santa Monica. And I'm in love with the ocean, the Pacific Ocean to this day. So I've decided today what I've been currently doing and still what's inspired me is to figure out how yoga can be inspiring to others to be bold and to get up and do things that you don't know what's going to happen, like getting ready for the unknown, like leaping into the unknown. Because my whole thing was I'm going to leap into the unknown safely. So I asked the universe to allow me to play into the world safely and to allow me to have the healing hands that I have. And I'm thankful for it to be able to heal. And I'm thankful to now when I came back, my daughter, she had a massage table sitting in her apartment and I thought it was for me. And she was like, no, that's for me. And that's when I had an idea. I said, oh, you might be interested in some of the stuff that I'm doing. And I said, well, would you want me to teach you? And she said, well, you could teach me some, or I could go to school. And that's when I kind of talked to you about her getting in yoga training. I said, I think she needs to be in yoga training to find herself, kind of get grounded. And so to see that has given me a confirmation that the work that I've been doing is living the work of yoga and keeping it as my best friend and keeping it close to me has carried me all this time. Having the breath, being appreciative, waking up in the morning, having a regimen to chant, even when I don't want to chant, even when I'm chanting and I'm zoning out, I'll put myself in a trance sometimes. I'll just go into this trance to drink tea and be thankful. And then seeing other sister friends become, yogis and hearing how I've inspired them and then watch them just go off into the world and just move quickly. I'm thinking it took me 20 years to get here. You guys are moving in 1 year. Like I've got a couple friends that are lawyers and now they are running retreats and in DC. They are traveling. Moving fast. So people are moving rapid because people want it. I think it's a opening or something, a gate opening or something.
There's a shift.
Something,
There's
yeah.
a shift happening for sure. It feels like.
Yeah, because it's moving really quick, and people are wanting it, and they are not ashamed to say it now. People are talking about, what's going on with them mentally, and even me. I've dealt with depression since I was a little girl, and didn't realize that. And that's why yoga's been so close to me, because I think yoga has curved that for me whenever I had this teeter-tottering happening and not moving. I even thought not moving was depression, because I could just sit in a chair and stare off and think for hours. But I didn't know that was like a form of meditation, so it's kind of where I am today. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you're like moving through the world with a lot of grace. It feels like, and like I, when I sit down and talk to people, I try to look for similarities, and I think that allows me to move, to show up authentically and be in a place where that, we're all connected in that sense. And that, I grew up in a dysfunctional household. I get that. I lost a son. I get that. There's these little moments of our being human. Yes. Right. And if we can see our similarity, and really I learned that in 12-step recovery. It talks about, don't compare, just, look for the similarities instead of, they talk about terminal uniqueness. Like, picking out our differences and like, well, I'm different because, exactly. So I, unlearned that thinking and learned that look for similarities. And excuse me, when I traveled, much like, I think like what it sounds like when you were traveling, you're showing up real authentically because you're comfortable in your own skin. Yeah. And that's like opens the doorway to being, what's the word? Just, I guess, showing up authentically is
integrity.
And not everybody has that, because if
I don't want any more sneaking, no more lies, no more secrets. It's being a therapist, you hold a lot of people's secrets. People want to share their lives, and you have to be really careful what clients you take and what people you intake. I learned that too. I don't always have to touch on everyone. I have to be mindful who I intake. Right. And I'm okay with that. Yeah. So it's not a need to get everyone to like me.
Right. That old codependent thing, right? Well, we talk a lot about the chakras and the energy, and then I was listening to Rolf Gates this weekend, and he was talking about how really the lower three chakras are our hidden roots. So like that tribal and things we learned from our family of origin and growing up and friends and community, and some of those influences show up, and some of them are multi-generational. And so like having balance in the energies of those aspects of the lower chakras allow us to navigate with an open heart. And it seems like you've done a lot of your work, and you're navigating with this open heart in a way that, you kept popping up on my radar, like, oh, it was always, we run into each other at Monumental Yoga or somewhere, and you just had this light,
Thanks,
that was shining from you. And I wanted to get to know you better, and I knew you were up to a lot of interesting things. So I'm like, oh, we got to get you on the podcast for sure.
I appreciate that.
And I think it's really interesting and inspiring, like through your work you're doing with people of color and in the community in a way that seems like very almost cutting edge, and you have an awareness, like you're looking around going, I think there's a need here, and that's the diversity we're seeing yoga and